Hi, this is Aaron GoBe. Welcome to the GoBe podcast. Today we have Fidencio from Mission Minded Moving over in Oceanside, California. How you doing this morning?
Good. How are you doing?
Awesome. And today's subject, we're going to talk about using your GI Bill and starting a business.
Okay.
Should you do one? Should you do both? I know that you've got experience utilizing both and doing both, and that was just kind of the subject today. But before we get into that, what branch does you serve in?
Marine Corps.
Hoorah.
Hoorah.
All right, awesome.
Semper Fi.
And, Semper Fi and all the such.
That's right.
What was your MOS?
It's 5811 Military Police.
Military Police and MP. Nice. Mm-hmm. Why do the MPs work out more than everybody else?
You gotta look good in your uniform.
I guess you do have to.
You're the first thing that people see when they go through the gate.
That's a good point.
Right.
Never thought of that.
Did you know the people that guard the two Marines that stand outside the HMX, the helicopter, HMX-1 for the president?
Yeah.
Those two are MPs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's how you get into that.
That's how you get into that.
Okay.
They're the closest Marine. They're the Marines that are that will become in the closest proximity to the president with the loaded pistol.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought that was a really interesting thing with the whole, there is the Secret Service, but then there's also the whole Marine attachment with the president sort of deal. So, anyway, tell me a little bit about Mission Minded Moving.
Mission Minded, moving, deliveries, junk removal. We add on services.
I didn't say the whole thing.
Sure.
I looked at the website and I saw there was a bunch of different taglines there.
It starts with moving, but we get into different general and specialized labor.
Okay.
I feel like that's kind of was like built for just general labor. I think my whole roots are general labor. So, but Mission Minded moving, deliveries, junk removal, just veterans, trying to bring more veterans, giving veterans a platform to either stand on while getting out of the military or even fall back on.
Okay.
Like sometimes you get in trouble or you find hard times. You need something to do. You need a mission. You need a task. We lose our task. We lose our mission when we get out of the military, and so that hero to zero complex. And so when I found security in moving. Everybody needs something to move. Everybody needs somebody picked up. If you're able body, then you can do this type of work. So that's how it's kind of like my little security.
Yeah, and I always get that too. Whenever I see there's I get like a Facebook message from somebody from like high school or something. Yeah. It's usually to ask them to help move because they're like, oh yeah, who's the biggest guy I know? Oh that dude from high school.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everyone does always need something moved, and it's really good that you have something that gets fall back out. So you do hire a lot of veterans?
Yeah, I try to hire as many veterans as I can. Still a small business. But as the brand grows, I feel like we can be able to impact more.
About how long have you been doing Mission Minded?
2017, November 2017 is when I formed my LLC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So about 6 or 7 years now.
Yeah.
And have you guys been growing ever since? Or I know there was like COVID and everything, but for you, that probably didn't even give you too big of a hiccup?
We're doing good before COVID. We're growing. We've been growing ever since. Revenue wise. When COVID came, it hit, and we kind of fell back to 50% of what we were doing the month before, actually a few months before. But then after COVID, we gradually climbed back up. I stayed working during COVID.
Okay.
I didn't let the government shut me down.
Yeah, same here. We didn't shut down at all.
Yeah.
So you didn't start the business right when you got out.
No. I got out in 2011. I did 8 years in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
And then in 2011, when I got out, didn't really have a big grand plan for myself.
Okay.
Got introduced to network marketing before I got out, and so
that's an interesting twist, huh?
Yeah. I got out in February 2011. I met a group of guys in 2010.
Okay.
And so I got introduced to network marketing and got filled with the vision of financial independence, freedom, working for yourself, entrepreneurship, personal development, that kind of thing.
So you got it, and that actually goes into what I say a lot about business owners is before you ever even own a business of your own, whether it's, having a marketing company like I do, or even having a moving company, junk removal, whatever it might be, actually having a background in sales and having a good foundation for sales is probably going to be one of the biggest helpers in any business that you do.
Yeah.
And so, if you were doing some network marketing, I would say if that helps for one thing, it does help you at least get some sales training.
Yeah.
I know everybody has mixed feelings about network marketing and how it works, but if you stick with it for at least a year, you will have some sales.
You're gonna grow. At the very minimum, you're gonna grow if you pay attention and you actually receive the information. When it comes to the personal training development part, when it comes to the even the sales, even if you're not good at sales yourself, you can see what other people are doing, and if you're there to pay attention, then you're gonna pick up some things.
So, when did you start using your GI Bill right away, or?
I did.
Okay.
So when I first got out, I was 26 years old.
Okay.
When all my family is in Texas.
All right.
So I moved back to Texas for a year. I told my mom, when we get out of the Marine Corps, I'll come home for a year.
Okay.
And so I did. I went home for a year. Went to the university down in Edinburgh, Texas. I went there for 6 months or so.
All right.
Took general education classes. I was never a college type.
Oh, I always sucked at school too.
Yeah. I was never a college type. In high school, I was ABCD student. I got all of them.
Okay.
Never got an F though.
All right.
Yeah, and 9/11 happened when I was a senior in high school.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the reason I joined the military.
Okay.
9/11 happened.
Well, that was probably a heck of a time to join.
Well, I mean, you don't. Back then, it was. I always grew up with the idea that if your country calls, you answer.
Yeah.
So that's what I grew up with, that idea. And so when that happened, I was like, all right. I didn't want to join the military. I went to a job fair. I'll tell you the story. I went to a job fair maybe 3-4 months before graduation, and maybe it was probably longer than that. But there was the Border Patrol, and then there was the Marines.
Okay.
And I went and talked to the Border Patrol. I was like, I want to join the Border Patrol when I get out of high school. I'm about to graduate. They're like, well, you're only 18. We give you a handgun. You got to be 21. I said, well, I don't join the Marine Corps.
That's weird. Yeah. Let's say they'll give you a gun.
We'll join the Marines. Join the Marines, and by the time you get out, you do 4 years. You get out, and this is before 9/11.
Yeah.
And you'll be we love Marines too. Like you just transition right into the Border Patrol.
Yeah.
And I said, nah. I seen Full Metal Jacket. I'm not gonna. I don't want to put myself into that. I had some family members that were in the military too, but I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then 9/11 happened. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna join the Marine Corps. Because if you're gonna get drafted, that was the rumor.
Everybody was thinking about if there was gonna be a draft or something going on, especially during that kind of Bush era.
Yeah, so that happened. You're like, okay, the country's gonna go to war. All right, well, if that's gonna happen, then if I join the Marines, then I feel like I'll be the best trained. So that way, if I do go, then I'll come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always had that kind of mentality too about that. Is like, hey, especially being a recon guy, being in the Marines, it's like, yeah, if you're gonna go out there with anybody, you may as well go out there with the best.
Yeah, exactly.
And it made me feel a little bit more secure. Yeah, I always found it interesting when my kind of joined the military story is I remember I went to a Navy recruiter, and I was going to join the Navy, and I came back and I knew that my parents would probably not have anything, so I told my grandma. Yeah. Went to my grandma's house, told her like, hey, I'm gonna join the Navy, and she was like, what? Yeah. I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about joining the Navy. She's like, what would you join the Navy for? They're just a whole bunch of fat dudes hanging out on a ship. Yeah. You need to join the Marines. And I'm like, what? Did not expect that out of my grandma at all. She's like, you have to join the Marines. They look a lot better. They have way better uniforms and everything like that. And I'm sure that to this day, my parents are probably pissed at my grandma because that's what got me to join the Marine Corps and leave Cleveland in the first place is just because my grandma was like, oh no, you have to join the Marine Corps, which completely unexpected. But
I'm sure they're proud now.
Oh yeah, no, they're incredibly proud about the whole thing. But yeah, it is interesting how a lot of people, they end up joining the Marine Corps because they were looking at joining something else.
Yeah, and then they saw the uniform.
And then yeah, they saw the Marine Corps recruiters and they're like, damn, that's just actually a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. It's nice to be part of, or to have experienced and be part of that brotherhood, that esprit de corps, that just to say you did something not everybody does.
Yeah.
And everybody has the opportunity to do it. I think everybody can do it, but a few choose to take that up.
Yeah,
and they're proud.
And so, kind of going, back a little bit more into the transitioning,
Mm-hmm.
Piece of it, because that's something that I think that, especially with this format, this podcast, that's something that I think we can help a lot of people out with is, and that's what I get most of the questions about is like, hey, when you got out, what did you do? How did you handle something? Because I think that, especially because you hire a lot of veterans, and I would love to hire more veterans myself. Mm-hmm. We've hired veterans on a few occasions here. Mm-hmm. But I think you start running into a bit of a. There's one of the main. I think there is a problem with transitioning veterans that I don't think is very well addressed by the GI Bill itself. Mm-hmm. Is as you mentioned, you got out and you were 26 years old. Mm-hmm. So let's say you're, we'll go off of that because I think that's to the average. Some people join at 18, some people,
21,
it's usually they're joining at around 20, 21 because they either tried going to college or they tried working, at mm-hmm. Chipotle for a couple years and they're like, this is lame. Yeah. I'm going to go join the Marine Corps, whatever.
The military in general.
Yeah, the military in general. And that'll give me a little more purpose in my life and everything like that. So I think when most people get out, I don't know the statistics personally, but I think it's usually around like 26, 27 years old is mm-hmm. when they're getting out. And, this also, the problem is this problem also exacerbates itself once you hit that, let's say you do re-up, mm-hmm. but you don't even get the 20 years. But, and then anybody who was listening on the last podcast, just because you do 20 years and get that retirement, it's not retirement. Just like disability isn't disability when you get out,
you can't retire.
You can't retire off the retirement. Yeah. It's so they call it retirement, but it's not retirement.
You retire from the military, but not from your finances.
Exactly. So, and I think you run into kind of an issue. So let's say you get out and you're 26 years old. And, let's say, especially if you're an 03 job or even like an MP, I guess, maybe if you wanted to go into like, a police, job mm-hmm. or something like that, any sheriff's department will probably be, oh, great, MP mm-hmm. got in, just like, hey, if you want to become a postman or something like that, and you were working in admin or something like that, I'm sure they'd be like, great. But especially if you don't want to be working a government job. Yeah. So this doesn't necessarily apply for a government job, but also if you want to be working a government job, why wouldn't you just stay in the military? Yeah. If you were like super stoked on working for the government. So, you get out and, let's say you're an 03 or even an MP or something like that. You didn't necessarily, it's not like you're working a motor T or like, something where you're gaining like any real good transferable trade skill or anything like that. So you get out, you're 26 years old, you go and use your GI Bill. Mm-hmm. You get 4 years, and now you're 30. Mm-hmm. So you're 30 years old. And now, let's say somebody went and they got their degree in marketing, graphic design, something like that, mm-hmm. and they're now coming to me. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting down there and say, hey, I would love a job. And I'm like, great, I can give you this entry-level job that this 22-year-old mm-hmm. also applied for that has the same degree you do. Mm-hmm. And I can pay you the same as this 22-year-old. Mm-hmm. But that's also the other issue is you're a 30-year-old man. Mm-hmm. You've been through the military. You're probably trying to start a family, trying mm-hmm. to get married, do all those life things that happen around age 30. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I don't think the GI Bill really addresses very well is you've already spent, for all intents and purposes, depending on your job, you've already spent anywhere from 4 to 10 years outside of the workforce. Mm-hmm. Because you've been in the military, which isn't necessarily being at a normal job or being in the workforce mm-hmm. or gaining any skills. And then you spent another 4 years in school. Mm-hmm. So now you've got that 10-year gap mm-hmm. That, as you said, your finances don't wait for that 10 years. Same thing with life, your girlfriend's not going to wait another, 5 years to get married and have kids, so that you can do all of that and wait until you're 35 instead of 30. And so, I usually find that for a lot of veterans, once they get out, let's say they are at that 26, 27, I was 27 when I got out. I find that the idea of owning a business is actually pretty helpful, because that can get you kind of more of a fast track to make up for that 10 years that you would have had in the workforce, that maybe someone didn't give you that chance, or, they didn't start you at that middle manager salary, having had 10 years experience or something like that. You kind of get to be your own middle manager, start a business. It's a lot riskier, but it might only take you, let's say you're 27 years old, it takes you 3 or 4 years to get your business up and running. Now it's actually like a full-fledged operation. And you can have that instead of using your GI Bill. But I guess that's that. I guess I would just want your opinion on that. Do you find that veterans go into business because of something like that, because they need to kind of speed up their finances, speed up their job training? Or
I think you should do both. I think you should use your GI Bill. If you don't have I didn't have a plan. If I didn't have a plan of what exactly I wanted to do, but I used my GI Bill to go learn different things. Okay. So I went to, first going to university to see what that is like. Taking general education classes, I was like, I don't want this. This is not. Why am I learning, algebra again? I never used it in the military. I never used it,
in your
from
life
18 to
in
26.
general.
I mean, I have doesn't suit me for what my goals are. But it may be suit for whoever's trying to be a mathematician, right?
Yeah.
Doctors, whatever. But use your GI Bill so that way you have that BAH coming in, and then the time that you're not going to school, pick a trade, pick a veterinarian, pick whatever it is that you want to do, or you think you want to do. Go and do that and see if you actually want to do it. Like, test the market, test yourself. Okay. Test. Don't be afraid to jump from thing to thing. If you have that GI Bill to back you up. So utilize that, and then if you catch a vision on something, then you can say, you know what? Okay, I'll go to school. I'll use my GI Bill. The government's gonna pay me to go to school. They're gonna pay me a BAH. I can on my time off from school, I can go and pursue X, whatever that is, right? So use both. Leverage that GI Bill to sustain you, so that way you don't have to go find an actual job.
And that's the thing is you actually have to. I think kind of what you're boiling that down to is you have to be focused, though. You kind of have to have a plan for when you get out, and even if you do want to hop from thing to thing and try a few other things, that's the time to do it. You can't,
That's the time to do it.
This isn't the time to be, playing video games and chilling out.
Yeah.
It's like if you want to get a jump start, and I wouldn't say jump start. If you want to catch up on life, basically.
Yeah, because you do feel like you're starting from zero again, right? Like, what's my purpose in the civilian world? Where do I bring my value to? What do I do? What am I good at? So you ask those questions to yourself. I ask those questions to myself, and then that's when you go into a state of depression, because what am I doing here? Maybe you do have a girlfriend and you want to get married, but you can't financially support that, and there's a whole bunch of different scenarios that people go through, and but you have to fix on something, right? And so that's why I think the moving part in Mission Minded Moving, when I got out, I didn't have a platform to stand on that's going to where I can show up, do some work, get paid my hourly wage or my daily wage, and then be able to still think, because you run out of breath, right? You can't breathe anymore. When you get out of the military, you're like, okay, now maybe you have a lot of debt when you first get out. Maybe you don't have a lot of debt, but maybe in the first 6-7 months or a year that you're out, you're going to accumulate debt because you don't have that money coming in. Yeah. Like you did in the military. I remember I would be down to like my last $10 in my bank account when I was in the military. I'd be like, I don't care. On the 15th, I'm going to get more money.
Oh, I mean, so if you were part of Navy Fed, they would pay you a couple days early and everything like that too. Yeah.
I think they still do that, but so you don't have that security of the government, So you have to fix something that you can stand on, and I think that's where Mission Minded comes into play. That's why I chose to stick with Mission Minded and not just have my own moving business and junk removal business. I wanted to expand and be able to provide a platform for veterans to stand on, so that way they can at least breathe, right?
Yeah.
What's that story that E.T. Remember that old
the alien?
The old speaker? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When you want to succeed as much as you want to breathe. What's it? Remember that? Yeah. There we go. I always see things as a scale. Right?
Okay.
-10, 0, +10.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So getting to 0 is a place where you can breathe, because you're not in a hole anymore. Whatever area of life that you're in, where your finances, if you have a lot of debt, then you're in the negatives, right? So getting to 0, once you pay off all your debt, you're like, I can breathe now, right? So getting, even if you're, overweight, or if you have bad finances, or your spiritualness is the negative, or your relationships, like, it's getting to 0, and how do you get to 0? That's always the question, So once you get to 0, then you can breathe and you can see things clearly, and then you can make your moves to advance.
I like that. Think of it more like a pH balance than
a pH balance.
Trying to reach that 0. You know, I guess you can go a little alkaline nowadays.
Yeah.
That's those trendy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I mean, I guess that's an interesting thing. So, it seems like you're saying that, like, yeah, the GI Bill is a really great time to, if you're focused enough, to also kind of test the market, get out there and do some different things.
Even if you're not focused enough. But I think this would only be beneficial for single guys and girls that come out. If you're single, then it's a lot easier. Obviously, if you're married, you have a lot more responsibilities. That makes it a lot tougher. I think a lot of people stay in the military because they're married.
Yes.
Right? They stay in there because they're married, not because they absolutely love the military, or they're, they have that spirit inside of them for the military, but it provides them their lifestyle.
Yeah.
And you have to have the courage to be able to get out and pursue other things, and have that courage to just fight. I mean, the Marine Corps, you're taught to adapt and overcome. So get out, adapt, overcome, if you want to. Unless Yeah.
Well, and I think that's a little different, as you mentioned too. Yeah, if you are married or you have kids, that will force you to be a little more focused,
sure,
or stay in.
Should.
When you're getting out. Yeah, you're not going to just be like, hanging out, playing Skyrim for the 50th time or whatever.
Yeah. Video games, unless you're making money off of video games, unless you're making money off of watching football games. I used to watch football games all the time. I don't. If it's not making me money, if it's not in my goal, in my pursuit to what I'm trying to accomplish, then I try not to give it attention. Even watching football games on Sundays, like, it's not doing anything for me.
Yeah,
that's the way I feel. That's me personally. But
yeah,
I used to be a big Cowboy fan, huge Cowboy fan, like jumping around and buying shots for the entire Hooters restaurant. If they scored a touchdown, I've done that before, but it didn't serve me. Not in this phase, not in what I'm trying to pursue.
No, and if you're focused enough and you really do have a goal, if you're mission minded, if you will, I can see where you're saying that. Yeah, a lot of that stuff, if it's not making you money, don't give attention, because you know what. My big thought is, especially like once I'm like 60 or 70 years old, I'll have time to play all those video games that I can actually probably pick them up cheaper.
Set your future up. Set up your future. Work now to set up your future, so that when your future gets here, that way you can relax.
Yeah.
Or else you're just constantly burning through the days.
Well, and I guess that goes back to what I was talking about when you're you're talking about getting out and being 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So you get out and you're 26 years old. I always thought of, and I don't know exactly where I got it from, but, your 20s, and this is the reason why most people are in the military in their
mm-hmm.
20s too, is that's when you have the most sweat equity.
Mm.
You don't have a whole lot of skills. You don't have a whole... I mean, you're not even very smart in your 20s or anything like that.
Yeah.
Sorry for anybody who's in their 20s, but your mind's not even fully developed yet until you're like 25 or 26 or something.
Yeah. Especially if you're partying a lot through your 20s.
Yeah.
I partied a lot through my 20s.
But you can pull all-nighters for, like, if you really wanted to do something, like if you really wanted to study for a test, or if you had to get something done,
mm-hmm.
or like, let's say you were even, let's say you were even moving somebody or mm-hmm. doing some, junk removal or something, you could work all throughout the night in your 20s, no problem.
Yeah.
I remember I was building, my wife and I were building websites throughout the night when we were in our 20s.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine, literally working till 4 a.m., editing photos or, building out a website or something like that. But that's because you're 20s, you have all this sweat equity to put in.
Yeah.
You may not have the skills. And then in your 30s, you have more of the skills. Mm-hmm. And your time may be a little bit more valuable, but that's when you're thinking about building your family. If you do choose to have a family, usually your 30s is the best time to have it. Maybe into your latter 20s, but typically in the modern day, you're getting more of those skills in your 30s. But yeah, when you have that sweat equity to put in, put that sweat equity, put that time into what you want to achieve, because. Yeah, when you're in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, you're going to have plenty of knowledge and skill, and but you're also probably going to have a lot more
responsibilities.
Yeah, and then also you'll have a lot less of that sweat equity to put in. But yeah, if you've got the sweat equity to put in, put it in when you get out. Put it in when you are in your 20s.
Yeah.
And your early 30s.
The problem is people don't know majority of the time is that people don't know. What to focus on.
Yes.
That's the big question. What do I focus on? Once you find out that, then you can start, putting in that sweat equity. Unless, and then you're gonna, if you don't have anything to focus on, then you're gonna be putting sweat equity into things that are not gonna. You're still gonna learn a lot.
Yes.
But it's not gonna produce the fruit that you're hoping for because you're just not focused on it. But you're putting energy into it. I don't know if that makes sense. You're putting energy into it, but it's not going to give you anything because it's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Because you to really find out what you're supposed to be doing in life, I believe, is like you have to experience different things and then figure, okay, I don't like that. But this right here, I can focus on this. This is what I'm built for. This is what suits me. This is where my vision is at. I caught a vision by doing this. And so let me run with this part. But you may go through 4, 5, 6, 7 different things. I went to university. I went to community college. I flew back here to California. I moved back here in 2012 after living in Texas for a year. Went to community college at Miracosta for like a quarter. Went to the Art Institute for Web and Graphic Design for 6 months. Actually, first it was culinary because I like to cook.
Yeah.
I used to like to cook, but not in the kitchen like that.
Hey, I have a culinary certificate as well.
Oh, you do?
That I got when I was like 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
But I never actually worked in the kitchen after that because I understand what you're saying.
Sure.
That,
so
that's insane.
But I enjoy cooking, but not like that. And then then I transferred over to web and graphic design. And then after that, I was like, still not. I learned some things though with web and graphic design. I created my own logo. Later on in life, I did the photography course, so that was cool. Color theory class, just things like that. Calligraphy, learning fonts, learning how the fonts.
Yeah, typography.
Learning how that, resonates with the customer and, what people see when they see a certain font. So that was really cool, learning all that stuff. But it's still, I think everything just piled up. I went to personal training after that, personal training certifications.
Okay.
I need to get out of debt during those 5 years that I was out here in California. So I moved back to Texas for a year, rented a really cheap room, worked for the Lackland Air Force Base as a materials handler, and while going to school for massage therapy because I still had some GI Bill left.
Okay.
So I did the massage therapy for a little bit. So it's like jumping around and doing, use your GI Bill, be not tactful, but strategize on how you can use that GI Bill and go into different trades. I mean, if you want to be a general contractor, go to use your GI Bill for welding, use your GI Bill for electrical, use your GI Bill for different trades, so that way you're not paying out of it and you're still getting that BAH, and that way you can build your repertoire of all these tools in your tool belt, so that way you are more valuable. The whole idea is to be more valuable for the marketplace.
Yeah.
The more value you bring to the marketplace, the more money you're gonna make. Bottom line. So where can you add your value? If you don't, yeah.
Yeah, and I think adding value is a really good important thing that again I don't think people necessarily focus on that. They're thinking like, oh well,
what
I'm
makes
just gonna
the most money.
Yeah, well, yeah, and they think about money. but they don't necessarily think about the value that they're going to add.
Money is a byproduct of the value that you bring.
Exactly.
That's plain and simple. Because if you're doing a minimal task, then you're going to get paid minimally. But if you're doing, if you're leading a company of 1,500 employees, then you get paid handsomely. It's just the value that you bring if you can do it successfully. If you can't do it successfully, then you're going to get fired, right? So you always got to be able to bring your value, and you got to figure out what your value is. I think in the military, especially in the Marine Corps, the leadership part, right?
Yeah.
The leadership part is the biggest value. Being able to work as a fire team, being able to work as a squad leader, or I break things down. I always translate everything to the military because that's what I know. From 18 to 26 years old, I'm a MP. I'm a Marine. This is what I am. This is what I do. This is how I resonate with structure. You lose your structure when you get out because there's no one telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, where to do it. So you lose that structure, and so you have to create your own. I'm creating. In my mind, creating my own little, fire teams. My own. Creating some foremen. Creating office manager, creating positions so that way people can bring their value and exercise that.
And I think the interesting thing about that too is I think you also, and I don't know, I know that I run my business way differently than a lot of people do, but there was a lot of things I learned in the Marine Corps of kind of when you're talking about leadership of what to do, but also kind of what not to do or what people don't enjoy.
Absolutely.
Doing, or things that you might be able to get away with in the military when it comes to leadership, but in the civilian world it doesn't necessarily work that way.
Yeah.
But I think being able to have because a lot of people they're always like, oh, did you do if people say, oh, did you do marketing in the Marine Corps? I don't think there is really any marketing in the Marine Corps.
Unless you're like a PR or you're working for the newspaper.
Yeah, the newspaper or something. But if people are like, is this what you did in the Marines? I'm like no, I was in recon, but what I did learn is that kind of the value that people have when you are able to trust them with a task, or when you make sure that they're competent enough to do a task, you do train them enough to do a task, and then you let them do it, without a whole lot of supervision. Just kind of like, they take pride in their work, they take pride in themselves, and they're really proud that they accomplished something.
Yeah. Did you say train and then release?
Basically, that kind of like train and release.
I go about it a different way.
Okay.
I like to see what the person can bring by themselves without okay, this is your office manager, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So let me see how you respond to these calls. Let me see what you naturally bring to the table. I want to see what value you bring, and then I tailor it to how I would like it to be. But because if the person can't do minimal tasks, then you can train them, but I want to see what the person brings automatically, organically.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that the military teaches you a lot about leadership. The one part that you have to take out, I think that in the civilian world, is because they have the breakdown build-up, kind of mentality. Yeah. You can't have the breakdown part in the civilian world because people are allowed to quit, and they do it very often. And so you can't have that breakdown stage. Yeah. But I think there's a lot, outside, if you take the breakdown stage out, I think there's a lot that you can learn from military leadership, and you can apply that in the civilian world. And I think there's a lot of different styles, as you mentioned, kind of seeing what people bring to the table, what their natural strengths are, and then kind of putting them in that role. Yeah. Versus being able to train and then kind of let them do their thing. There's a few different management styles there. But I think that as far as working within a team is probably one of the biggest ones that you learn in the military that maybe people outside of the military don't have that much familiarity with. My dad used to always make fun of my mom being like, your mom never played any team sports. My dad played like college football and everything like that. Like, your mom never played any team sports. She has no idea what she's talking about. Yeah. And but you can also kind of get that, with people who have, not been in the military or played a lot, higher level team sports. Is like, they may not understand that idea of, I'm working here to make sure the team is
Yeah.
doing better. I'm not just working for myself, or I'm not just worried about my own performance or anything like that. And I think being able to manage or kind of almost like be like the head coach is something that you can learn in the military, even if you're not learning that particular skill or anything like that. You know, I'm quite sure that that you move plenty of things during working parties and stuff. You can learn some skills in the military, but I don't think it's a skill so much as far as being able to. Manage people, manage things as a team, and just work within a team.
Yeah. I think the hardest part, maybe the transition part, is for the leadership part in the military and the civilian. Like in the military, barking the orders.
Yep.
You see a lot of leaders like, oh, do this, do that, do this. Make sure it's done by 1600 or
Yeah.
And like in the civilian world, it's more of it's a lot calmer. You can't do that. You can't just bark orders. You have to. I'm not very good at this part, but I've learned recently that you have to give them the why of why they have to do it.
The why.
Yeah, why you do it.
And it takes a lot of it takes a lot more time to explain the why. But I think that what you get out of it is always going to be worth it. And I always have to tell myself that in my head. I'm like, I'm going through the why right now, but it's going to be worth it because they're not going to have that kind of disdain that, I always had for a lot of my, I'm sure even at times with King Richie, and stuff like that, like I had that same sort of disdain because I wasn't told the why. And so I'm just like, it's kind of like, if your boss seems like, he's being stingy with money and doesn't necessarily tell you the why, or like, hey, we need this piece of equipment, can we purchase it? And he says no, but doesn't really necessarily give you the why or the reason behind that. It's just like, well, he's just Scrooge McDucking a whole bunch of money in his basement, swimming through gold coins, and he's just being a cheap ass. And it's like, well, no, if he actually, but if he took the 10 minutes to explain to you, like, hey, you know what, we may not be able to buy this piece of equipment till next month because I'm trying to pay down this loan right now, and once this loan's paid off, then we won't have any interest for this, and that'll free up enough time to be able to purchase this new piece of equipment or something. That may take 5 minutes to explain, and it almost feels like you're oversharing sometimes. But I think that was a very good point, is that the military, you feel like you're supposed to, as a leader, you're supposed to say the least about things.
And the leader, in the military, like, the plan, you see it in your mind, but, you're just like, all right, make sure, this private goes and does this, make sure this private goes and does that. If that gets done, then it'll be fine. But you have to give the whole blueprint for your workers in the civilian world. And, but also when you're planning a mission too, when you're deployed and you're planning a mission, you still have to give them, all the information that you can, because you don't want them to not have any of the information too. So it kind of, it all translates. They still have to get
what was that SMEAC back in the day? You have to give them the whole SMEAC. BAMSIS,
yeah. Begin the plan, arrange reconnaissance, make reconnaissance, complete the order, issue the order.
Man, supervise. You remember that way better than I do.
Yeah.
I was gonna mention BAMSIS, but I was like, I don't remember the acronym.
I was indoctrinated since I was 18 years old. So I knew the whole phonetic alphabet before I even went to boot camp. Yeah, because I was just general orders, thinking about it. I lost a lot of it, but yeah.
And so I guess this might be another question for especially some of your workers and stuff like that you hire. What is your thought about the kind of like a message to Garcia model of things? Because I think I find that's a little controversial as far as the civilian world works versus the Marine Corps, but like, I just want to get your thoughts on that.
I haven't thought about Message to Garcia in a long time. Can you remind me of...
Okay, so Message to Garcia was basically, to sum up the book, and if any of you guys haven't read this book, it's like literally, it'll take you like a half hour to read it.
Yeah.
It's super short, and it's basically a thing in the military where if someone says like Message to Garcia, it basically means figure it the fuck out.
Yeah.
That's kind of what they're saying with it, but to sum up the book, there's this dude named Rowan. and he was told, hey, find this guy named General Garcia.
Yeah.
Doesn't ask any questions about it. Just goes into the jungle.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah. Goes and finds the guy. But like, and essentially, like the book breaks down where it's like, he wasn't like, who's Garcia?
Yeah.
Why is Garcia?
Yeah.
Kind of like when you're saying like you have to explain the why behind things. Message Garcia is like the opposite of that, where it's like, no. You figure out the why. You find your own why, and the why is not any business to you. But like I said, there's also some merit to that of like, hey, just figure it out, or ask other people. Like this guy's this guy's the leader of whatever organization. He doesn't need to be answering all your small questions. You can find some of that out for yourself, or find it from some other people. And not have to seem like you're a 5-year-old kid being like, why? What? Who's this? What's going on? Why are we doing that?
I like the idea of figuring it out, because then it keeps the person thinking, keeps them adaptive.
Yeah.
Right? So I like the idea, but I think like with anything, is the situation dictates. That's one thing we learned in the Marine Corps too. Yeah. Situation dictates, and so depends on what the message depends on. As the one that's giving the order, it depends on the purpose of the order. Right?
Yeah.
Or whether you need to give that person the information or not. If you just send them out to do a task, I don't care how it gets done, as long as that couch doesn't get damaged throughout this process and it gets delivered and the customer's happy, that's all that I care about. Really, yeah. Right? So however you have to bring yourself up, however you have to handle that item, so that way it's a safe and secure transport, and it gets delivered appropriately and the customer is happy, that's what matters the most. So figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? So
and that's there's kind of that more of a management style that Is that and that's essentially Message Garcia. It's like, hey, here's the task. As far as what you do or why you're doing it or anything like that, you can figure that out.
Yeah.
And I guess there might be I think as long as maybe they have the right intent in mind, then usually the kind of middle part will kind of figure itself out. But yeah, and I guess like I said, that's the opposite of over explaining and the why and everything like that. And I think that's something that can transfer from the military. But you're right, you have to do it very tactfully. You can't just you can't just tell somebody who you just hired, like, hey, just figure it the fuck out, boot.
I think I do that sometimes, though. Just figure it out. Like, learn, because you need to learn. So, I don't know. Maybe it's a laziness of myself, too.
Yeah.
Right? It could be a part of it. It's just like, well, I figured it out.
Yeah.
Right? So, I need you to figure it out, too.
And, and I know...
But people don't operate the same way, and so it's,
And I know
I'm not the best business owner by any means, so I'm not the...
I will say the same thing, because I know some of my employees are probably going to be listening to this, and, we were talking about not the best business owner. Sometimes I figure I do the Message Garcia thing because, like, we take care of a lot of stuff here. I mean, heck, even this podcast here is a whole lot of production work that I don't even have formal training in.
Yeah.
So sometimes figure it the fuck out is also like figure it the fuck out for me.
Yeah.
You know, like hey, we just got this new piece of equipment. How about you go figure it out? Because asking me questions isn't gonna help.
But you also put the people in place that or right, like if you're hiring my office manager, I'm hiring my office manager. Well, you put the best people in place for them. Like Richard Branson always says.
Yeah.
Put people that are great at what they do and get out of the way. Put them in the place to, for them to do it and get out of the way, because they're gonna have a better solution than I would. They're gonna, because they've been thinking about this. This is what they do. This is their mindset. This is what they know. So if you know logistics, then hey, let me hire this logistics person. Let them take over. Why am I going to try to, give them this information when maybe I'm wrong? But they've been doing it for 20 years, and I've only been doing it for 4 years.
And so you mentioned you did a little bit of culinary work and stuff like that too, like in the school. So in theory, this will make sense. So I think a lot of people misconstrue this in business as when they're talking about their business's culture. And if you actually think about culture, a lot of people think like culture as in like I don't know, like, oh, the ancient Aztec culture used to, like, build pyramids or something like that. It's like, no, you need to think of it more of like a bread culture, like if you did sourdough bread or something like that. And so it's like you're putting all the things in place. You're doing the temperature, you're feeding it with certain things. You're putting you're putting the parameters in place. You're setting everything up. The culture is what grows from that. And so, I think what you're talking about, putting the people in the right place and trusting them to do the same thing, just like a bread culture, I can't say what's going to grow, and I can't say, what sort of, bacteria is going to grow within that bread culture to make that bread. I can set up what the temperature is. I can feed it certain things. But I can't actually go in and, be like, oh, I got to change this around, or oh, this is growing too fast. I can, like I said, I can make sure that the setting is whatever it is, but I have no control over that culture,
the framework, the parameters.
And so that's something where when people talk about company culture, I think that's really when you're talking about the leader sets the company culture. I think of it more like a bread culture. Like, hey, you're putting this person here, you're putting them in this office, you're giving them this computer, you're giving them this truck, whatever it is, and they have to kind of grow. What grows out of that is the culture. It's not necessarily you setting the parameters, because that's not the culture. Me putting the bread, the yeast in the refrigerator isn't the culture. It's what actually grows.
It's what grows from there.
It's what grows from there.
Yeah, based on the ingredients that you put in there.
Yeah, based on the ingredients you put in.
Yeah.
Or the setting in which you put it in.
The setting, yeah.
So.
Honing your environment, anchoring your environment, right? Like having all the plants and the the military awards and everything like that. You're anchoring your environment. You're creating what the culture you want by putting things up on the wall. You're anchoring that environment.
Or even things like having a mission, like your company has. Like you have a strong mission statement. You have a strong mission that you're trying to accomplish. And I think when you're talking about, hey, here's how I'm going to anchor the environment. And then what grows from that is what the culture is.
What the culture is.
Yeah, and that's why when people talk about, like, oh yeah, here's how you can, change your company culture or something, like, it's like, no, you can't change culture. You can change the environment.
Change the environment, but you can't. Yeah, I hear you.
You can change the environment, but you can't change the culture. Like, you can change your company environment by putting stuff up. You could give everybody raises.
Change the environment, that changes the culture.
Yes. But it's also not something where it's not going to be a one-to-one thing either. You're not going to be like, oh, I'm going to change the environment here, so here's how the culture's going to change. It's like, no. That might be a delayed effect even.
I mean, bread still needs time to rise.
It still needs time to rise. Exactly. I think, I think that, like I said, and so that's the way I think about it. So when you're talking about putting people in it, it's more of a bread culture thing, not necessarily like a, ancient Mayan culture or whatever.
I like that perspective. I like that. Yeah, it's not like, making sure you eat tamales every Christmas or something like that, right? It's not like it's not like a family culture. It's not not a family culture, but race culture. Right? It's not like that.
Because a lot of people think of like company culture would be very 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 similar to like a societal culture.
It's not like societal culture.
It's more of like a what's growing from the environment that you're making. And that you're setting for something. And so I guess when you're talking about between transitioning, then it seems like you use quite a bit of your GI Bill trying to figure out what you're trying to do. What made you just say like hey, this is why I want to be an entrepreneur, this is why I want to start a business, this is why I want to have a team, everything. What's kind of the why?
Well, financial freedom was always my why. Financial freedom was always my why. Always wanted to be financially independent, and that's by creating a cash flow, creating some. And if you can't do it with, if rich dad poor dad, right? So it goes back to that of figuring out how to get on that right side of the quadrant, depending on where you're looking at it from. But being a business owner is the way to do it, and you have to go through the steps of being a self-employed but still owning your own job, which I'm probably barely getting out of that part and going into the business owner, the business
actually
owner.
being a business owner.
Actually being a business owner, where you're working on the business. See, if you're working in the business, if you're doing the day-to-day tasks, if I'm still going out and doing the deliveries and junk removal jobs, then I'm still self-employed, right? I'm not, even though I have other guys working and doing that stuff too. But once I get out of that position and that operation is just going, then I'm a business owner. That's how I feel, right? Because you're not a business owner until until the business works without you, and then
or at least in some capacity,
right?
Well,
where you can like delegate, where there's more delegation.
And actually, interestingly enough, I would say you go from being self-employed to being a business owner, and this is something that I ran into a little bit in the beginning of my business, maybe a little bit more because you're doing more like task-based stuff, but because we're usually a vendor for somebody for a very long time. We even have some clients we've had for like 8 or 9 years at this point. But I remember when I first started, I used to get the question like, if you were to die, like let's say you got hit by a bus, what would happen to your business?
It's your business, right?
And it's just like, well, if you're self-employed, then then
it goes away.
It would just go away.
Yeah, it falls.
And if you're a business owner, it at least have some chance of survival.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the difference between you're talking about being self-employed and being a business owner is, do you actually, is the business an actual asset or is it a job?
Exactly.
Is it something that, could you sell it tomorrow? And I think that's something that I even think when you're talking about a lot of, older guys that are kind of retiring or getting out of what they're doing right now, I don't think they ever gave thought to that. Is, like, hey, how can this be a business? Not just like
I have my own job.
Yeah, not just what's paying the bills.
Yeah.
And like even my dad, like, I think a lot of things when it came to his business, he had a custom drapery business and everything. I think he maybe even still have it over in Cleveland. But I don't think he ever really gave a thought as to like, hey, how is this going to be more of a business?
Yeah.
That will still live on without me.
Yeah.
As opposed to being kind of more of a self-employed sort of a job.
Yeah. So network marketing gave me that vision, or gave me that, gave me that courage to be like, you know what, I could build my own business, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be in network marketing, right? Having that, growing your teams.
That's really tough to build.
Sure,
though.
sure.
Yeah.
But I have a really good friend of mine that I started when he was, he's at a decent level. He had his financial independence, and we've jumped from company to company back in the day, and then he stuck with this last company, and he's one of those people that made it because he got in and he stuck with it. And so he's one of those people. So I've seen it happen, around me. I've seen, I've met internet marketers back in, early 2010, 11, 12, that have gone on to, you'll see them on the internet now. Like, I've seen a lot of different opportunities around me that I never really, attacked or put myself involved with. But I see the people that stayed with it, and they grew to where they are now. Because it's just time. It just takes time. If you're going to keep doing it, even building my business here, like, it just takes time.
Yeah.
You're not going to win. You're winning every day, but you're not going to have that, what you feel is successful, until you give it enough time for you to make yourself rise, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just...
Well, yeah, and I think, of course everything does, take some time, and,
just gotta stick with it, whatever it is.
And, going from, being self-employed to being a business owner. I mean, heck, I remember even one of my investors said, like, oh, you have to put CEO on your card or whatever. And I was like, well, I'm a business owner, because I had owner on my card. And I was like, I'm a business owner right now, but if I have to take out my own trash every day, if I take out the office trash every day at the end of the day, I'm not the CEO. I've never seen a CEO who takes the trash out. But I will. But then at the end of the day, I ended up putting CEO on my card because now the new building we moved into, they actually do have a janitorial service that takes the trash out.
Nice.
So I will have to say, I did wait to put CEO on my card until we moved here, and it's part of the it's part of the CAM fees or whatever. But it is one of those things where I think there's going to be certain levels. If no one's ever asking you like, hey, what's going to happen to your company once you die? right?
Yeah.
You're now officially a business owner if nobody ever asks you that anymore. And then, I'm sure there's other levels of, ways to do it. But, if your main why is the financial freedom, it's stressful, but it does work.
Financial freedom was, it is stressful, but financial freedom was always my why. Because if I can create financial freedom, then I don't have to work 9 to 5 for the rest of my life. And when I retirement is not about how many years you put into something. Retirement's about how much money, you generate without having to go and do X.
Yeah.
So that's retirement. In the military, you do 20 years of your life, you get retirement, 50% of your base income. So whatever that is to someone, maybe it's $3,000-$4,000. All right, here in California, you're paying a $3,000 mortgage, and maybe a $4,500 mortgage. There goes all your retirement money.
Yeah.
Right, just for the mortgage itself. So you have to go get another job. So you're not retired.
Yeah.
Retired is being able to wake up and not have to show up anywhere. Right, unless you want to. Retirement is having the ability to take 3 months off if you want to take 3 months off. Just having the ability to do something.
Yeah.
Right? Not even that you want to take 3 months off of work, but I never want to retire, actually. I want to be financially independent, but I never want to retire because, when you retire, you expire.
Yeah. I think...
You always want to keep moving. You lose the momentum. You want to keep the momentum. You want to keep doing something. You want to keep productive. You don't want to retire, in my opinion, because, Yeah,
and I also think that's something too where, I mean, you probably know a little bit more about the financial situations of millennials, with some of the work that you did in the past. But, I would say when you're talking about, from a millennial standpoint, I don't really think that we're gonna have the we're going to even have the ability to retire in the classical sense of retiring that generations past.
Nor should you want to.
But that's the thing is, I don't think you should want to.
But you should want to always increase your revenue streams. You should always want to increase your flow of money so that way you aren't suffering. Yeah. Right. So your family doesn't suffer, and then with all that extra money that you have, then do good with it. As long as you're doing good with it, then you're gonna continue to get more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's another thing too is I think that as a lot of millennials, we're kind of seeing boomers that are trying to retire right now, but they're actually having the opposite effect of because they want to retire so bad and stop working, they're basically kind of selling off all their assets that they might try to do good with in the future or pass off to their family or anything like that. That whether it's their business, their home, or any sort of kind of cash flow generating asset that they have, they're very focused on. Oh no, I don't want to show up to work tomorrow, so I'm going to do everything I can to not do that. Whereas kind of the mentality you have to have is kind of what you're mentioning. Hey, let's always try to figure out what's going to be your next source of income, or how can we be building up more, and especially when you're that old, it's probably going to have to be some form of passive income as opposed to that's as I mentioned that from earlier, that sweat equity you had in your 20s is not going to be the same as when you're 60.
Sure.
Like I couldn't have started this business in my 60s.
But it goes back to how well you take care of yourself throughout the process. Because
that's true.
I have my foreman. He's 63 years old.
Yeah,
63-year-old foreman still moving houses, still doing the deal.
Hey, I train jiu-jitsu every morning with a 64-year-old man, and he kicks my ass sometimes. And but it's not like I'm going light with him or anything like that. But if you take care of yourself throughout the process, you can. But also, I will say, no matter how good your body is in shape, again, you're not pulling those all-nighters to get a mission done like you were in your 20s. Even if your body's still in good enough shape to be, you
want to be able to build something. You have to build something so that way you can take the pressure off yourself, and you have a team that can help support you. Because if you keep the pressure on yourself the entire time, having a 9 to 5, my dad's been working, in the same industry, since he was, about 20 years old.
Yeah.
Same industry, but every day he sees I'm 39, 49, 59. He's getting to his 60s. He's still young. He still can do it. But, his mindset was, as long as I'm working inside the office, then I'm good. I'm secure. As long as I have an office job, because he used to do like construction with my grandpa. And then that was back in the 80s, the early 80s, where it was looked at in America to be able to get that office job.
Yeah.
And that labor was like looked at as less, right? Because leave the people without the education to do the labor work.
Yeah.
And go get an education and get into an office and get
into some sort of service job or something like that. Yeah.
So I mean, I think it's a flip now, because now so many people have gone to let me go to school and get a degree, and so I can get this office job where I can be more valuable to the marketplace, when it's not necessarily about the degree that you have, but it's about the work ethic that you have.
It's kind of like you're seeing those memes, those memes that flip nowadays, because it used to be, like 10 years ago, it used to be like, oh, hey, Mr. Worker, go learn to code. Everyone used to say learn to code. Yeah. Now it's like learn to weld. It's the opposite of like, everybody was especially now with AI and stuff the way it is, like everybody was like, oh yeah, learn to code. It's like no, like AI is not going to be doing your electrical work.
Yeah.
AI is not going to be doing your...
Even though technology is like increasing every year, right? Every year technology is increasing. There still has to be this human element that we can't lose. There still has to be this human element of that we're, that deals with work ethic.
Yeah.
That deals with getting your hands dirty, that building up that callus. Because if you lose that, then that's like, then you're going to... Any adversity, you may crumble.
Yeah.
You still have to be able to fight, because this world is a crazy world as we see it today.
Yeah.
So you still have to be able to, to have that strength to fight and that willpower to keep moving forward. And I mean, I think that goes into a bigger, deeper conversation.
Yeah, you got to make sure that you do, keep your ability to fight and stay in the game. And so, real quick, so if people want to find Mission Minded and get in your service, where would they go?
missionmindedmoving.com. Everything is Mission Minded Moving on our Instagram, our Facebook, and we're the San Diego location. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have other locations?
Not officially.
Okay.
But yeah.
So that might be just a talk for another time. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could definitely get into that. And and if you guys definitely want to listen on watch on YouTube for any upcoming podcasts, or you can listen on wherever you get your podcast content. And it's been a pleasure, Fidencio.
I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, and awesome. We'll definitely have you on again. It looks like we could probably cover a lot more other topics.
Let's get a group of us in here and talk.
Yeah. Right? we'll have a different podcast for a whole group.
Yeah.
Because I know definitely
a little round table.
Yeah, well, definitely a little more round table, but yeah. So it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.